guys, and welcome to a series of talks that we will be putting together to help you throughout this time. We have Rob Matskin and Sean Mader, who are experts in their field. Rob is a 7-time entrepreneur with a few successful exits, and Sean is a creative strategist as well as an innovation expert. Together, we will be providing you with innovation, with different techniques and ways for you to be able to get through this unprecedented time. So let's start with the number one thing that we're all pretty much experiencing as a community, and that is fear. And so let's just get the ball rolling and start to talk about the situation. And yeah, who wants to start, guys?
The one thing I think just we have to look at first is, if we have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, largely we all go through life with a huge amount of comfort and stability, and that allows us to do some of our higher functioning, some of our more abstract thinking, the things that happen in our normal day-to-day meetings. First, just noticing, hey, some of the basics, our sense of security, our sense of financial even stability, even if you don't have a lot of money in the bank account or even struggling, now it's really upset, or wondering what the future looks like. These are all things that upset us at kind of a survival level, at a very deep, profound level. And so one thing I think we first have to all acknowledge and get very clear about is this: we're kind of a neurobiochemical soup up here. And normal day-to-day life gives us some purchase about how to navigate life. But right now, that's been really upset. And so the survival mechanisms, we're talking about fight or flight, or how your brain neurochemically responds in times of stress. And I've been just taking the time over the last week to talk to a lot of people. People are stressed. And what do we normally do? We do more of what we already know. And it's a real...
Can you give us a few examples?
Well, look, a lot of us are showing up every day, doing our best to get by, doing meetings online, doing those things. But if we look at the long-term trajectory, we're going to go through some different spaces in the next month, 2 months, 6 months, a year. And we're going to have to very soon start to move out of survival mode, or this kind of mode of shock that we've been in. And we're going to have to actually kind of harness control over this brain and start to get it into the modes of ideating, prototyping, coming up with new ways to create value in our companies, in our lives. So the first thing I think we can do from here is really start with, okay, I need to actually get control over this and get it from survival mode into a mode of how do I start to look outward and begin creating. And so Rob and I have been talking about the different practices that we use that we really recommend.
Yeah, and just to add on that, I think one of the techniques that I use before I get into the actual techniques of how I calm my system, to add on what you're saying, Sean, is one of the things I do is I zoom all the way out and zoom all the way in on a daily basis, right? Like right now, okay, I have some foundational stuff and some foundational anxiety, and how do I kind of breathe that away or meditate that away, and we'll get into that, right? But then, so I can move to the next level, right, and get what I need to get done today. But also, to Sean's point, right now we're so busy with today, and I'm speaking to so many clients. Like, I reached out to my clients 3 weeks ago saying, hey, we need to get on top of this. We need to start innovating. And it took them, some of them 3 weeks. I just spoke to one of the last ones yesterday to get on the phone to start thinking. And everybody's so embedded in the weeds, but we also need to worry about, and putting out fires, we also need to worry about zooming all the way out of how do we transform our businesses to optimize for what's going on today. And I think we need to zoom through all those layers on a daily basis now. And it's hyper important as the world's changing so rapidly. But to Sean's point, let's start talking about the first level, the foundational stuff of what we could do to put a really good foundation in place so we could thrive in those other levels. Yep. So Sean, I'll kick it to you. You want to talk about some of those techniques?
Well, this might sound a little bit callous or kind of dismissive, but it really actually empowers me to think of my body as a system of neurobiochemicals that I have to manage. I actually just have to manage the mix of it. So I know right now if I go into a day without any kind of game plan, I go in freaked out about what's going on out in the world, or I wake up and I have a sniffle and I worry that I've got the coronavirus, it's going to spiral out by the end of the day. I'm going to be really frazzled, and I'm going to be really unfulfilled, and I'm going to be filled with more worry, and I'll kind of just keep going in that loop. Now, inside of that, my immune system is going to tank. It's going to disrupt my sleep, do all this stuff. And it's really just a function of our neurochemicals and our basic biology. So how do we actually harness control over that? So I'm going to just rattle off a list here. Obviously, if you've ever wanted to meditate, now is the time. If you ever wanted to start doing yoga, now's the time. Breaking a sweat every single day. And one of the ones that I've actually really doubled down on and have been doing really rigorously every day has been deep breath work. Does anybody on here know Wim Hof?
Why didn't you tell us about it?
Okay, Wim Hof. That's the actual first and the last name. It's this crazy guy from the Netherlands who's categorically shattered our common conceptions of what the mind and body are capable of, and he's kind of hacked a bunch of the stuff from that have been known throughout yoga and different disciplines throughout the years into a very simple method for you to gain control of your health and vitality. One of the things he does is the breath work and holding your breath, and actually, you know, for anybody's interest, I'll post some links to this later on just to kind of, you can watch a documentary on him. But the technique is so simple that in 20 minutes of doing this breath technique, you will literally stand up and feel like, oh my God, I actually have control over this machine here. And you'll feel yourself go from one state to feeling calm, feeling clear-headed, and knowing that you can do that in any moment, at any point of the day, is hugely empowering to people, just to know that they have that at their fingertips. So I'll post some links to that, but that's been the thing I've been starting every single day off with.
It's a good way to declutter the mind as well. You know, we wake up worried, and we read the news. There's so much going on that before we can even do anything for ourselves, we're already freaking out. So just giving ourselves that space to breathe helps us declutter, like take out all the stress so that we can have that space and capacity to prioritize and do what we need to do.
Yeah,
I think quite literally doing that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's two distinctions here. There's choosing things that are going to resonate with you, that you want to do, right? And choosing what those things are, right? And I'd recommend starting small with them. If you choose meditation, don't choose an hour meditation. Don't choose like an hour-long Joe Dispenza super deep meditation. Kaizen, which is a Japanese proverb, but it's keep it really simple. And it's what Toyota uses to thrive. But that just means maybe starting with 1 minute a day, right? Keep it really simple. It's more important to do a little chunk consistently than a big chunk, right? But also, I think the other thing to implement, since our routines are completely gone, right, is creating a routine. One of the things that I've done for a while now is actually implementing a morning routine. And that means every morning I wake up, I do the same thing. I wake up, I brush my teeth, I go, I meditate, right? Then I've had different variations over the years. I've gone then to stretching, I've gone then to doing some journaling, but I'm creating a block of time. It could be 5 minutes. I've done it up to an hour of, hey, this is what I'm doing in my routine, and this is what I'm putting in, this is what I'm taking in, taking out. Right? And that way, it's a really powerful way to start the day. It gives you that anchor point, and hopefully you're choosing things that are going to clear your head and allow you to create a great foundation and motivation for the day.
Creating habits and a new structure.
Exactly.
Yeah, and literally, you're going to have to think of it as a structure. Like, okay, I actually, speaking of simple, one of the simple things I would recommend anybody is break a sweat each day. Find one way to break a sweat. Get this thing pumping and getting blood pumping through this, because as you pump blood through this, as you do breath work, as you do yoga, you're actually starting to circulate out a lot of the stagnation that builds up in the body, the stress that I know builds up back here for me, the actual stress chemicals, the actual chemicals that we secrete to actually flush those through the system. So you almost have to think of, the same way you wouldn't really balk at doing laundry. when you have your clothes get dirty or smelly, you're going to have to do the same thing for your body. And because we're not getting out, we're not moving around as much, we're not traveling as much, doing it in your home, it's going to literally mean the difference between being able to go through the day with a real experience of having actually accomplished something and created something and fulfilled on something, or being a stress ball at the end of the day and feeling really unfulfilled and waking up again in fear.
Yeah.
So, after this, we'll post some links, just to some good resources, but now more than ever, there are yoga, your local yoga school is doing online classes and offering online guided meditations. There's so many resources out there right now that if you're a beginner at any of this, there's no better time than now to get some real support in that.
You may even adapt a new skill during these times.
Absolutely. I think the one thing I'll also add is, as Sean was just talking about getting a sweat on, doing a workout, I think no matter what you're doing now, it's even more important than ever to kind of create a state of flow, right? And one of the things that I realized is like a while back, everybody classified me as an adrenaline junkie because I needed this thing to get me really focused and get me focused on just one thing so I could be fully present, right? Our brain wants to keep us in the future and in a state of worry or worrying about the past, right? But we really perform the best in that present moment, in that state of flow. So whether you're getting a workout in or even taking it into your work and creating a state of flow there, working deeply without distraction. Sometimes now, I know for me, I have a lot less distractions. It's a lot easier for me to schedule my meetings. If you have a family and the kids around, putting yourself in a space where you're going to have maybe less time. So it's even more important to be more focused and work even deeper in a bigger state of flow, which means less distractions, choosing one big project to work on our series of projects in a row to kind of go deep on, I think could be really powerful as well. But again, the state of flow as I define it is really just working on one thing or focused on one thing without kind of distraction. I think is really powerful and therapeutic as well.
100%. All of this that we're talking about is literally just about understanding the situation and creating a structure. It's just the beginning, guys. And this is what people need to understand, that we're all faced with this shock, with the situation, and how are we going to deal with it? What do we need to do before we even sit down and sit in front of our computers and work? What is it that we have to do? We have to change our mindset. We have to change our routine. We have to create a new structure. And a lot of it has to do with our mind and the way we see things and the control that we have. So is there anything else you would like to talk about this initial step before, moving forward and actually taking on work and what we do on a day-to-day basis within this new environment?
I think that's the one thing we could jump ahead and start talking about how to be productive and how to navigate this new landscape. And there are ways to do this really productively and ways to have this period of upset and disruption actually be a way that creates new value and could be actually a time of huge discovery. And we'll get into that later, but I think in the beginning steps, when in the first couple of weeks of this, I think just if people can just appreciate where you are as an individual. This is a time of extreme disruption. You're a human being. Everything just got disrupted and your brain chemicals and everything is in hyperdrive. Just having some compassion for yourself. Having some compassion for the other people in your life, they're going through the exact same thing. Your wife who might be, or your partner who's upset with you suddenly, they're freaked out too. So by just starting at the beginning, which is having some compassion for ourselves and for other people, what we're really actually doing is starting from going from the survival mode, which limits our thinking, which has us go into contraction mode, which has us, do what we know to do to try to power through. If we can just get that that's what we're going to normally be thrust into and start to put in some proactive measures to really start to create space, shift our brain functioning to our higher functioning, our prefrontal cortex, using some of these techniques to really learn how to manage this. When you use these, you will start to discover an actual different sense of awareness, a different sense of clarity. We'll start to see that there are opportunities to create. So that's where we're going to go in this series of conversations. But right now, I think we're just dealing with the recent events, but very shortly we're going to be moving into a new phase of learning how to integrate into this new way of life.
Yeah, and also compassion for yourself and what's going on recently, right? And giving yourself a little bit of a filter and compassion. Where I think one of the things I'm really starting to transition to do is more read periodical publications, and limit myself to the gossipy side of things. Like, I'm not reading the New York Post, or I'm not necessarily going on more of the publications that are sensationalizing things, and trying to more see what's really happening, and then limiting my exposure to that, and not necessarily checking it when I wake up or checking it when I go to sleep, and not necessarily being on my news feeds at those times, or trying to stay away from my news feeds right now more than ever, because they're just filling up with all this stuff. I shared, I think, with both you guys, a publication of like 10 great things that are happening right now, or 10 things that are actually positive, I should say, with everything going on, trying to consume some of those things as well, but being compassionate to yourself with even what you're taking in and how much you're taking in. I'm not saying put blinders on, but I'm saying we don't need to necessarily read this most sensationalized things for extended periods of time.
Ronit and I were talking. There's a term coined by Tom Wolfe, the author, called digibabble. And I think now more than ever, Rob, you and I were talking about the book Deep Work by Cal Newport, which is also, if you're going to read a book and really start to understand some of the larger governing principles that existed before coronavirus came, being able to control your intake right now is more important than ever. It is so easy to go, I know for me, to go run off and watch a video on my phone, and then have the text messages coming in the whole time, and then doing this. If I do that, if I don't put my phone in airplane mode from time to time and get some deep work done, I'm a hot mess by the end of the day.
Yeah,
I'm stressed out. Then I just want to knock out. I want to just go, there's actually an opportunity in all of this to really start to understand the functioning of this. And when you do, you can be happier at home with people, with yourself, and especially in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to have to start to really discuss how businesses are going to begin pivoting and begin creating new value, and how to actually get your teams functioning better. And it really does start with those fundamentals.
Absolutely.
And it just helps understanding what the world is going through. The more we understand, the
Yeah.
more knowledgeable we are about the situation, perhaps the easier it is for all of us to get through this as a large community.
Well, Sean, I've been wanting to ask you a question, because me and Ronit talk a lot, and one of the things I think, or most of the conversations I'm having outside of business, this is what the news cycle is dominating my conversations too. So I want to be compassionate and listen to what other people are going through, and I need to, and people are being compassionate to me and venting to listen to me, but we're perpetuating this cycle. And I'd love to get your take on, well, how to kind of break that, or where's the line,
Well, that's actually a really great question, because on one hand, we do need to be in communication. Trying to, soldier on with a happy smile when your whole world is imploding, that doesn't work, obviously. So now more than ever, appreciating just being in communication with people, but actually just really getting that's what's going on with them right now, and really bringing a deep level of understanding. Not piggybacking on and adding drama to the facts is one huge thing. But yeah, sometimes we got to talk it out. We actually have to really be there for each other. And at the same time, remember, the brain wants to sit there and microanalyze all of the threats right now. The fact is, I'm actually home. I have food in the pantry. I've got an internet connection. I'm being asked to sit on my butt and watch TV and, ride this out. I'm not actually being asked to go to war in a foreign country. I'm not being asked, when you can separate the facts from what our brain starts to add to it, that's where we start to go crazy. That's when our systems go into overdrive. So if we can recognize that for ourselves, and when we are talking to, I'm talking to clients, I'm talking to friends, can you separate the facts from what we project, what we fear, what we do? Because if we can be responsible to that, then there's an opportunity to direct the conversation outward into what are we really committed to here? Personally, I'm not committed to freaking out. I'm not committed to being stressed. I'm not committed to being, upset. I'm not committed to being annoyed. I am committed to having this period of time be enriching, teach me something new about being a human being, serving other people, how to create value, and be creative in this period of time of unprecedented change. Okay, well, if we want to now turn our conversation to that, then, the person who I'm speaking to, we could engage in a conversation of really looking and discovering something, or getting connected around something that brings us connection and some joy and some creativity. So each one of us has to go from understanding that, okay, here's my default state is to freak out. Let me manually steer the ship, and we can actually alter the entire experience of ourselves and for other people. And if we continue to, and look, I'm here as a resource for people in all of this. This is stuff I love doing, but I realize the difficulty of it. We'll post our contact info later on.
Yeah, and I think
reach out to us.
And we'd both love to speak on anything related to this. But I think, Sean, I think that's a great answer of how to really manage our conversations. And what I got from that was really saying, okay, we need a vent. We need to hear each other out. We don't need to add sensation. We don't need to add stories. But also we could shift our conversations after a few minutes into being up to something, into having fun, into joy, into saying, I'm loving speaking to you right now, and bring that compassion, love, and joy into anything else as well. The other question we touched upon it a few days ago, but we didn't, I think we got cut off, or we both had a run. We both have interesting family relationships, or I have an ever evolving relationship with my family, my father. I've been speaking to him over the last few weeks, and it's interesting, everybody coming to their own realizations and when with this stuff. But I'm going, Dad, you can't go shopping anymore. You shouldn't go shopping. You shouldn't go to these places. Why bother? Why take that risk? And I've been hung up on twice in a row the last 2 nights. And you're not bringing drama. I'm not bringing anything. And it's because I just don't think he could. I'm not even sure. I don't want to speculate, but he doesn't want to be cocooned up in his house, and having those difficult conversations with loved ones. I know, Ronit, you're having those conversations with your grandmother and getting her not to go shopping and just go for the cucumbers and the vegetables just because she wants it as a routine. And and it's hard.
It's another issue. It's a challenge.
So where's the compassion? Yet the hammer to maybe just
the
lock
compassion
them up,
versus the hammer, right? Yeah. Well, so I lead these large leadership programs, and one of the things I've discovered over time is oftentimes we have an opinion. Like, great, I've got tons of opinions, and I've got opinions about people going out to the stores and doing all of that. So I'm not immune to any of this. However, notice that is simply my opinion, and I'm trying to now shift somebody by trying to get them to get my opinion in order to alter their behavior. I've found that does not work, and usually leaves me pretty frustrated and is not fun for anybody involved. I find what works more, and this is obviously, we've got immediate issues going on too, but this is a leadership 101, or how to have your teams function, is I put the question or the problem over there with them. Okay, so in a domestic dispute, like, a friend of mine does something that I just think is really stupid. Instead of being like, hey, you're an idiot, you're stupid, you shouldn't do that. That would be my view. You're like, hey, I saw you do that. Explain to me why you did that. And put it over there with them, or to your dad. Dad, how would you feel if somebody actually got sick or you end up spreading this disease that ruined a family? Would you be okay with that?
It's a good way of doing it.
Or if, look, we're all dealing with teams and clients. You know, how do you empower your teams? I mean, so right now, I think there's so many bosses who are freaking out, as individuals, for what they're dealing with their personal lives and their families. And they've got employees just waiting to be told what to do. How do you start to engage people and start to put new challenges to them to get them thinking in new ways? So the biggest thing is, I have to really get that my opinion doesn't matter. How can I engage people to start to do the thinking themselves? And if you can start to harness that, that's when we're going to start creating value. That's when we're going to have people self-actualize out of this. So I don't know, this is the stuff I like to dork out about.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And, you know, bringing it back into a business context, you know, I'm bringing the compassion into a business context and business calls. I'm having a lot more video chats. I'm recommending all my team members have video chats instead of being on the phone. Right. And when I get on really any call, especially, you know, I also do biz dev and strategy, but when I'm on a sales call or a partnership call, I'm like, I'll leave 30 seconds to be, hey, how you doing? But now it's like, let's leave 5 minutes. Let's leave 10 minutes. Let's take the time that we need to get related to each other, you know, and hear how everything's going on. And spending that extra time for me has not only deepened my relationship. I have one client now. We used to speak every 6 months. It was one of my partner, or was a partner in, we have a partnership relationship with. I speak to her like 3 times a week. She's my second Jewish mom. And, you know, she's like, oh, you're not feeling well. I wish I could bring you matzo ball soup. But, you know, it's just allowed us to have a deeper connection. I wish under different circumstances, but we're both there. And we're doing more deals together too. One has nothing to do with the other, but it's a lot easier to communicate. So, but leaving that space for each other, I think has been.
I'm going to use a horrible analogy here. It actually works for me, but in this period of time right now, compassion and giving people some love and just getting where they are. But what the terrible analogy that it always occurs to me is like, you know, when we're so full up of worry, we're full up of anger or whatever. I kind of think of it like somebody who's really, by the way, we kind of approach this like, I have an agenda. I need to do something for my business. I need something. And we want to just talk at them, not realizing they might be full up. So it would be like if I was a chef who had this really amazing meal and I just really wanted you to eat it, but I didn't really appreciate that. No, you're nauseous right now. You're about to throw up. And sometimes the best thing you can do for somebody is just hold the bucket and, you know, hold their hair back and let them get it out.
He clearly did not have a Jewish family growing up, because we'd still give you a plate of food.
Yeah, seriously. Wait, I have a question.
Catholics have their own thing. Don't worry.
We want to hear about that. So I have a question regarding leadership, like within a business environment and versus the situation we're in. You've got a boss, a leader, someone in an organization who until now is not used to reaching out to his employers in this format, and you know, the ego takes over. How am I going to now communicate with you guys like this? You know, we're seeing each other's faces. I have to open up. I have to be vulnerable. Maybe I'm feeling a little bit of fear. Do I share this with my people? Do I keep it inside and act all macho? Like, what would be the natural and safe and recommended way for leaders out there to behave and, you know, to see the situation? What would you guys recommend?
Well, I think there's the default that is there. Not for everybody, but largely, I'm the leader. I need to present myself in a certain way. I need to show that I've got control over this. That actually doesn't work. What's there, I think, first off, could be the challenge for somebody in a leadership position to be human, to be vulnerable, to actually share that they're a human like this, you know, going through this as well. And in doing so, again, I kind of keep coming back to this, and it sounds so obvious or hacky, but compassion. if you can actually have compassion for yourself, that there's a human being going through unprecedented circumstances, and really start to speak to the people on your teams as they are also going through this, everybody can take a deep breath. And from there, you can be straight with people. I mean, there's employers out there, they don't know if they're going to lay people off. They don't know that right now, the survival part of the brain says, kill people off, just, lay them off, save what money I've got. And inside of that thinking, you couldn't even get to, guys, I don't know exactly what we're going to do just now, but right now, I want to take a look at how we could start creating value maybe in new ways, because I am committed that I take care of you and we take care of each other. Now, those two conversations are very different. One was just going to lay people off and have them go suffer, and everybody goes scatters and fends for themselves. But if you can actually, again, keep intervening with this neuropsychology and neurobiology that we're all dealing with and intervene, then you start to make something new available. And you can start to where we'll actually take this conversation after a while is how to actually co-create with your people. And tap their need to they really want to do something positive. They want to contribute to the solutions. So how do we activate that?
Bringing this conversation also together with our last, I think the biggest thing that I've seen when I'm leading, and I think the biggest thing that I've implemented is actually opening up and being vulnerable, right? If I'm open and vulnerable with what's going on and what I'm feeling and where we are, right? Where cash, like one of the things that I yo-yo with my business partner at my quest on this is, hey, where's cash flow? Hey, we've had some tough times in the past, and letting people in and saying, this is where we're at. I've always been impressed with how my team reacts to that. They go, okay, great. We understand. We get it. Right. Versus saying, no, everything's fine. Everything's fine. But when I open up, whether it's I'm on a date or whether it's with my team, the more vulnerable I am. I think, Ronit, you were part of this conversation once. I was, we were at a dinner party actually at my house, and I was talking to one of my friends about, being vulnerable when you're out is actually really great. It allows somebody to start a conversation with you, and it allows them to be comfortable with you. Versus they're going, no, you have to be strong, you have to be macho, you have to be tough. And that's what I grew up with, all this identity and ego and masculinity. And the more I had those, the less people responded to me. The more I sit back and open up and relax and put my trust into other people's hands, the better people respond to me, the better people perform around me.
100%.
I think the strongest thing we can do right now is to soften, and the people who are going to come through this the most effectively, whether it's their personal relationships, themselves personally, their business, are those who are going to learn to be flexible and adapt and kind of move with the changes versus that, muscle it through. And I know friends of mine are already challenged with it. They're trying to muscle through, put on a happy face, and it's exhausting, and they're going to break, and they can't even tap their real potential when they're doing that. So I'm just committed that through all of this, that we support each other in doing that. So I know, look, if there's people listening to this, that schedule a call with me, I'll give you some free advice or whatever, but it really is incumbent upon us to not let ourselves go into survival mode and to get out here where we could actually, God forbid, we discover something that was even better than we had before.
It just seems to me that a lot of good things are going to come out of this situation. And I just wanted to ask from you guys, what do you think will be, good results that are going to, one day when we're all allowed to leave our apartments, I feel like the world is going to shift in so many directions, and positive ones as well. I wanted to know from you guys, the experts, how you foresee the future after this is behind us, in a positive light, of course.
Yeah, totally. I think, and there's, there's books upon books about this, but whenever there's, struggle, we have to be more innovative, right? And innovation comes from challenges, comes from strife, right? Nobody starts a business saying, oh, everything's really hunky-dory, I think I'm going to, just to add to what's really good. People say, I see a problem, I see a challenge, I want to address that. Well, now there's lots of challenges out there to address, right? So the more, and we'll keep talking about this, but through that adversity, whether it's Malcolm Gladwell talking about it in David and Goliath, right? So me, myself, right? Growing up, I'm dyslexic. I'm severely dyslexic, right? So if I ever write you, you'll catch a million spelling errors, you'll catch a million grammatical mistakes. It's just me dealing with what I have to deal with on a daily basis, and it's totally fine. But growing up, I realized at 5 I'm different, at 10 I'm different. I don't think I can perform. I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I'm smart enough. But going through that challenge from a very, very, very early age, right? My mom spotted it at 3. How I see the world is very, very different. The lenses I see, and it's my greatest gift that I've been given, both from a perspective of how I see the world, but also the character and what I went through. So going through the challenges, sometimes you come out the other end, you come out the other end stronger for it, and we're all going to come out the other end. So, that's what I have to say about that. But, knowing that it's going to be fine and we'll be able to create after this, and what we'll be able to innovate after this is actually, it's really interesting coming from that life.
Yeah. And look, again, if we look at, especially here in America, we have such a rich entrepreneurial culture. And if you really look at the foundation of it, it's finding an unmet need in the marketplace. And these, what's a challenge that people are dealing with, and how can I provide a solution? Well, there's a lot of new challenges. And there are the people who are going to be effective here are people who are going to see, oh, if I'm actually getting out here with my clientele, or perhaps discovering new partnerships and capacities that I have that can make a difference for somebody else, that aspect of entrepreneurship has never changed. So there's real opportunities for businesses to enrich lives, to make profits, to keep their workforces engaged and happy. So are we going to go through some short-term challenges? Of course. But yeah, I think we're going to, maybe in the next conversation, we're going to touch on this a little bit. But we actually have a long history of, as human beings, of challenges bringing out the best in us. And so we'll go in more in depth on the next conversation, but there's a real opportunity to shift our perspective into looking out at what's going on now as an opportunity for us to create value in ways that, sure, monetarily, but also in the kinds of family culture, personal culture, work culture that we're creating. So in design thinking, we're always trying to set up experiments to glean new insights, and you do prototypes and see what new kinds of insights you can gain. You couldn't have designed a better experiment to glean new insights about what's available for us than what we're going through right now. So I'm particularly curious to see new needs, new ways of doing things, new workarounds, or even disproving things that we took for granted before. Turns out we can work remotely a lot more than we thought we could. That's one of the ones I'm just, obviously discovering in this last week. And there's going to be a lot more depending on what industry and sector that you're in. So I'm actually very excited by all of this. I plan on using this period of time to be very curiously engaged. And I'm also going to do some binge watching. So
that's a whole thing. Yeah. Continue.
Yeah, but I think that brings up a lot of good points. Like, if the culture of remote working actually transpires, maybe means we switch to 3-day weeks in an office, right? What does the office environment look like in that sense, right? Does the office environment change? Do we move to more common workspaces? If that happens, that remote's more comfortable and we're all telecommuting, does that mean that the landscape of cities change and we don't necessarily need to be next to a hub and we could live other places, right? And people can make choices, right? What happens then? What happens there? right? But I also think bringing it back to now, it's like you're a business owner, you have a business, or you're employed, or you're innovative. Like, how do you adjust right now? Like, I'm seeing like bars and restaurants, I think, are some of the hardest hit the soonest, and the workers there are hit the soonest, right? You know, my last company actually used to be an alcohol delivery company that was acquired. So we used to deliver alcohol. Those apps are spiking right now. They're having some of their best days ever, right? But restaurants just, you know, Seamless and Grubhub with food delivery, they're helping small business owners out and prioritizing small business owners on the app and new business owners on the app so they could still do some delivery. And people are adapting to there. I saw one bar was, I don't even know if it was legal or not, that they're selling cocktails on the street for people to clean out some of their inventory. But there are ways of being, I think, a little innovative now. Like, for example, if you're, I'm just spitballing this off the cuff, but if you are a bar owner and you're a cocktail bar and you're known for making amazing cocktails, well, maybe teaching people at home how to do that could be really fun. Maybe having all your patrons, you know, order. I have no vested interest in any of these apps anymore, but order the recipes and have them home and have a class on making your own cocktails, right? And having a fun night with you and your partner making cocktails, and I guess having a few too many at home. I guess you don't have to worry about getting home now.
Exactly.
Could be a fun way of doing things, but there's many ways of innovating why people come to your establishment, why people always have bought from you, and how do you deliver that value, that outcome to people now, right? So, you know, obviously Sean thinks in a very specific, innovative way. I think I just showed you one of the ways that I think of how do we kind of take lemons and make that lemonade, right?
Yeah.
And how do we think really outside of the box and do that creation and ideation? So, you know, something like that for you is interesting. Also happy to go through the motions with you and happy to kind of create right now.
Yeah.
Also, obviously those conversations are also kind of fun for me. I can't paint for the life of me. I have no artistic ability, music, none. But somehow I could create a business and I could create mind maps with businesses in my head, and that is my creative ability. So happy to share that with you guys and with the world.
Brilliant. And, you know, thank God for technology. You say you can't paint, but you can definitely send someone a link on how to paint. So we're so grateful to be living in an era where we're not just stuck at home with nothing. We're stuck at home with a world of resources and information that up until now we didn't have the time to sit and look at. People can learn new skills. Shop owners that have spent so much of their time in their store speaking to people can, like Rob said, find ways to improvise and to bring that store online and sell it in a different format, which will require them to learn about all these technology platforms, giving people time for that. So there's so much innovation that's going to happen.
Totally. I think we're we're in some ways really fortunate. Imagine if we were in the 60s right now.
Exactly.
Right? And we didn't have video games, phones, internet connection. Like, well, we had phones, but you know, the landline would have been probably pretty tied up. But
I think they had party lines back then.
Yeah.
So everybody would have been up in your business.
So we do have an advantage, and we have a way to communicate, and we do have a way to still kind of keep the ball rolling in this world. So yeah, we're all going to become technical geniuses by the end of this stage.
By hook or by crook.
Yeah. Cool.
Anyway, so is there anything else you guys would like to add within the segment?
We could talk all day on this. I think we might want to break this off into another piece where I'm excited. There's a whole conversation about how humans have performed in crisis in the past. I think we'll save that for the next episode. And really, I think I see that we can move to is, you know, over the course of the next couple of weeks, how do you start to now discover these new opportunities and engage people and start to create new opportunities. And the one thing I'll just kind of say at the end here is people are going to remember how you reacted in the face of challenge. And that's a real opportunity for businesses. People will remember the restaurant that went out of their way to figure out how to have you have your favorite thing that you used to buy from them, or the bar who was selling cocktails on the street and teaching you how to make them at home, or your customers about how you cared for them during this period, and then look for new ways to take care of take care of them using capacities that might not be a product, but you know what, turns out we can help you out like this, and let us see what we can do. So there's actually a rich world of opportunity right now. And now that some of the busyness of life and the normal kind of frenetic pace that we're used to keeping has died down, I think there's room for something new to emerge. And what's underneath the surface of the waves oftentimes is more compelling. So
and it's
yeah.
exciting. We should look at the silver lining, and there's so much opportunity here that we could all just dive into and create a better world, don't you think? Yeah. So whoever is interested in further education, needs a little bit more help with their business or their personal leadership, techniques throughout this time, feel free to reach out to either Rob or Sean. They are experts within their fields and are more than happy to help you out and guide you throughout this crazy time that we're all going through together. So don't forget that we're all in this together, guys, and we'll get through this. So yeah, until the next time, we'll see you guys.
Adios.
Soon.
Thanks, everybody.